I think he read him.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
In 1937, Detroit was in turmoil. Auto workers were on strike, and union strength was growing. A local minister and part-time labor broadcaster was found fatally injured at the Ford Rouge assembly plant. These dramatic events come to life in the play Forgotten, the murder at the Ford Rouge plant.
The boss has got to sign when you organize.
Actors, singers, and musicians tell the true story of how Detroiters built a union town while searching for clues to solve a mysterious death.
A strength of 100,000.
See Forgotten at Mary Grove Theater, October 10th through the 12th. Tickets are $35 at Eventbrite or at MichiganLaborHistorySociety.com.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, and see, we not only talk about the political here, we talk and we promote the cultural as well. Looks like an amazing play that's going to be there at Mary Grove in the middle of October.
I just love being to Mary Grove. I go there just for Mary Grove. It's pretty cool campus.
Yeah, I know, Ed. I know you go there just for the articles. Well, you know, until Tuesday, it seemed like, or I should say Wednesday, it seemed like the busiest thing that had happened all week was a rather disgruntled and self-entitled Phillies fan trying to get a baseball from a young kid. But we can talk about that later as well. Joining us today, we have, of course, pollster Ed Sarpolus, one of our three troika of lawyers representing the entire legal profession anywhere, and the Michigan bar at that, Joel Sklar. We have former Detroit News and Detroit Free Press reporter Darci McConnell, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and we, of course, have co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. So
Danny
I guess
Fenster is having some internet issues. He's going to try to get back on.
Danny Fenster, Detroit journalist and journalist of the Substack Non-Zero newsletter, will be joining us when the tech can improve. Barb Ingalls, one of our regulars, as well as Steve Fishman and Bill Cycli are elsewhere. We should really do we should have dropped an AirPod into Bill Cycli's soup so we could track where he is today.
It's on an airplane, supposedly.
He's on a jet plane somewhere. Well, let's go ahead and then talk about really what is the seems to be the biggest news in the cycle right now, and that is the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. As of right now, it seems, according to a news conference, that the suspect has been apprehended. 22-year-old Taylor Robinson from Utah,
Tyler.
I'm sorry. I get my presidents mixed up like that too, Nancy. And Taylor live.
What's the difference? One letter, right?
There you go. Adams, Quincy Adams, they're the same thing. But Tyler Robinson was apprehended and brought into custody. Seems to be, according to the reports, the assassin who on Wednesday killed Charlie Kirk at a distance of about 200 yards with a high-powered rifle while Kirk was speaking at Utah Valley University on one of these tours that he does as founder of Talking Points USA. Thoughts on both the assassination and the Turning Point? I'm so sorry. I mean,
okay today? I don't know.
You know what? I switched from Coke Zero to Simply Lemonade. Never again. Oh, that sugar is mixing me up. Yes, and plus Turning Points should have been in my Talking Points. That's the problem, Nancy. Okay, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll start off. You know, I think it is tragic that somebody who's engaged in speech, even if speech I don't agree with, was shot and killed by somebody who disagrees with that speech and was offended by it. That's important. That being put aside, I think elevating Mr. Kirk to the status of sainthood is a mistake. He's not deserving of that. There's been a lot of fatalities in this democracy recently. Children of Democrats, state representatives, all sorts of people. And there's been no outcry from Republicans that I can see other than thoughts and prayers. So this is a turning point. I think this country's waiting for Tinder to just a spark to blow up, because the vitriol that I see and the presumptions that I see immediately after the shooting was, let's kill the leftists. We're going to take theirs out. But this guy isn't a leftist, apparently. I don't know what he is. But that is frightening. And it's just a predisposition that we have in least 50% of the country, apparently, to kill the other 50% and just looking for a reason to do so. It scares me.
We got video. We have video.
All four former presidents are reacting to the death of Charlie Kirk. Joe Biden posting on X, quote, "There is no place in our country for this kind of violence." Barack Obama shared a similar sentiment, writing, "This kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy."
None of those guys are running this place right now. So I want to hear from the current big guy.
For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today.
My fellow Americans, we must come together to destroy each other. This is what this guy does. The last time Trump delivered a thoughtful message was apparently when he sent a birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there seems to be, and Congresswoman from South Carolina, Nancy Mace. See, Nancy, I didn't say Nancy Grace.
And this is what Nancy Mace is, but go ahead.
Who's also running for governor in South Carolina. When a reporter asked her, when she was talking about and accusing the Democrats of causing this, the reporter simply asked, does that mean that we blame all Republicans for what seems to be the targeted political assassination of Minnesota state legislators? And she just about lost her mind going after this. Yes, joining us now, Detroit journalist and author of the Substack Non-Zero newsletter, Danny Fenster. Thanks for joining us. See, now you got me off my game.
The only one on this panel who is a former political prisoner. So there. Yeah.
Also, can you hear us, Dan? Can you hear us, Danny? Can you hear? No, speak English.
No.
All right.
Well, as a matter of fact, the nicest comments first came from Newsom in California.
Yeah.
He led the pack. He led the pack with the most appropriate response. He didn't do any comic routines, but he was the first person politically to make a comment that was positive on what should have been said.
Yeah.
So the chief confabulator, as well as, a lot of these folks, their hypocrisy knows no bounds. And they have led the campaign of lies, fear mongering for some time. And so just to try to take the high moral ground and point fingers is so galling, but not surprising.
Yeah.
No. Well, Darci, on that, I mean, we're seeing obviously and quite unsurprisingly, these kinds of encomiums coming from right-wing media sources and all. But if you look at CNN and if you look at even the network coverage of this, it seems as though there's almost a race to lionize Kirk from these sources as well. And I'm wondering that, is this out of fear of some kind of recrimination from the administration, or is this a genuine fear that they're having that there's going to be reprisals that target them?
Reprisals that will target them.
Is it like a Reichstag moment? I mean,
another possibility is, and this is something that Allan can speak to if you've ever worked for a newspaper, and never mind CNN. I've told you a million times in the show, I don't have cable anymore, so I didn't watch any of it. But I do have subscriptions to both the Washington Post and the New York Times. And their as good as cable in a breaking news situation. They have a live blog on their homepage. All you have to do is just keep hitting reload. But they're the same way this week. And it's really getting on my nerves because, it's one thing to be fair. It's quite another to obfuscate the truth about this man. And it should not take a highly developed intellect to understand that on the one hand, this was a bad thing that happened. But on the other hand, Charlie Kirk is not a brave lover of freedom. He's a piece of shit. And he has said terrible, terrible things about people. He is not a guy who just wants to have a friendly debate with people that he disagrees with. He says things like we just saw on the screen. He said terrible things about anybody basically that he doesn't like or agree with. He's a community college dropout who made himself a millionaire, right, claiming to speak for the leftist indoctrination that happens on college campuses, which he would have with zero evidence. His claim is bolstered by the fact that they have a Black Studies program or a Women's Studies program, which of course nobody is being forced to take. But for him to have made this guy who couldn't even make it through community college to have made a fortune calling women like Michelle Obama and Ketanji Brown Jackson diversity hires. It's like, fuck him. I'm not saying that it was a good thing that somebody took him out, but I'm saying I'm not going to miss that guy. That's all.
Let's just talk about some of the things that he said. Here's a list. Quote, most people are scared when they see a black pilot flying a plane. Yeah. Taylor Swift should reject feminism and submit to her husband. I don't think she's married. No one should be allowed to retire. British colonialism was what made the world decent, to which the French and the Belgians said, sacre bleu. George Floyd had it coming. The January 6th protesters didn't. The 1964 Civil Rights Act was a huge mistake. He condemned mayoral candidate for New York City, Zohran Mamdani, for how he disgustingly, quote unquote, eats rice. We in the West value cleanliness. We have utensils, except at backyard cookouts. But that's
he made jokes about the man who broke into the Pelosi's house and attacked Paul Pelosi with a hammer.
Called for his followers to bail him out.
Yes, and also let's not forget this. He added. He amplified it was a gay lovers quarrel thing bullshit that was going around the right wing too. So I mean, I have, if some circumstance down the road leads me to walk past his grave, I will have in the future. I will have no problem spitting on it.
He was also anti-empathy. He thought empathy was toxic.
Yeah,
so
right. A good Christian
not only you can be sympathetic, you can feel sorrow, okay, but you cannot.
He actually called it a new age disease, Joel, and
Correct.
apparently Enya was really upset about that. But Alan.
I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, I have to look. I don't side with anything this guy has said or almost anything that he said, but obviously we can't have, somebody could shoot Bernie Sanders and say, well, I didn't like his ideas. I didn't like the way he was speaking. So I in that respect, I condemn that. But now what we're seeing is a cancel culture where we're seeing some people fired from MSNBC.
That's crazy.
We saw there's a sports writer in Arizona was fired for, and it's not like they're saying good, I'm glad, but here's the GOP Oakland County Republican Party
Vance Patrick
is saying that Oak Park Judge Jamie Powell Horowitz should be resign. And here's what she wrote. She says, talk about dying for your beliefs. She went on to quote Kirk, I think it's worth it to have the cost, unfortunately, some gun deaths every year so we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. It's a prudent deal and a rational deal. That's all she put. He's asking, I think what's happening now is that we're seeing a major cancel culture happening where we saw Trump made jokes about Nancy Pelosi and said, oh, he was at a speech during the campaign. He said, oh, anybody know how he's doing? And, oh, apparently that wall around the house didn't work very well. And ha, ha, ha. They're
pressing their advantage. I mean, and this is the kind of thing that Democrats don't do, basically. I mean, they know they have the upper hand, and they have the cable networks, and they have the major newspapers on the ropes, and they're just laying on the punches, and they're going to keep doing it until somebody pushes back and says, wait a second. I mean, they're talking about giving this guy the Congressional Medal of Freedom, which will talk about cheapening.
Well, not only that, Nancy, but also there's a resolution being proposed by Republicans in the House to allow Kirk's body to lie in state in the rotunda.
Yeah.
And Vice President J.D. Vance, in fact, skipped a 9/11 commemoration in New York to fly Kirk's casket from Utah to his hometown in Arizona on Air Force Two.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Have you heard anything about the GoFundMes that have popped up for his wife and children? Now, keep in mind, Charlie Kirk was already a multimillionaire. Yeah. Okay. And his widow is going to become even wealthier when she sells or does whatever to his network. But which
is Turning Point USA.
Exactly.
I learned.
But there's already been a couple of GoFundMes that have raised millions more for for the widow Kirk and the children. I mean, what has happened? I'm sorry. I have to
all I'm seeing is the fact is the cover up for what the Epstein issue. They're calling the Democrats, the leftists, the pedophiles. Well, you got a pedophile running the damn country. You got a man that was a sexual predator, and they're trying to cover that up. This is all protecting Trump. It's the whole on and on and on and on. Every time I think there's another Trump cover up, another Trump cover up.
Exactly.
We have Jon Stewart, a little rant about this whole thing.
One is too many. One death. By the way, true. It is too many. Violence should never be accepted. It should never be tolerated. But that's for their issue. In the wake of Sandy Hook and Uvalde and Parkland and El Paso and Lewiston and Aurora and Buffalo and Boulder and Binghamton and Highland Park and Monterey Park and San Bernardino and San Jose and San Francisco and the Pulse nightclub and the Colorado Springs nightclub and the Little Rock nightclub and the Borderline Bar in Thousand Oaks and the Ned Peppers Bar in Dayton and the Waffle House in Nashville and Virginia Tech and UVA and MSU and UCSB and FSU and NIU and SMC and the
all I know is if he did that without Marlon Brando cue cards or a teleprompter, I'm really impressed. That was quite a list. Danny, what are your perspectives on the coverage of the Kirk assassination?
The coverage, I mean, it's been hard to cover when I just saw this morning there's been a pretty massive update, I guess, but it was hard to cover throughout that process when different statements kept getting released. So I think reporters were, mostly trying to do the best they could, but it seemed like just a lot of confusion was coming out of the Justice Department.
Okay. It seems also, we were discussing earlier that even those sources which aren't necessarily aligned in the media on the right side of the political aisle seem to be capitulating to a certain narrative where they are not even critical of the fact that Kirk made some rather polemical statements during his career. It seems as though there's just simple categorical coverage of the sorrow and the outrage of his murder.
Yeah, that didn't surprise me. That's sort of kind of a standard reaction, I think, when somebody passes. There's a sort of the hagiography kind of thing going on. Like, it should be possible to admit that, he was a prick, but he also doesn't deserve to be murdered. But yeah, there has been, the funny thing is, like, the argument people are making, and this isn't coverage. This is more commentary. The argument I saw Ezra Klein make was that he was practicing politics the right way, and was a defender of debate. I would just repeatedly stress that it's tragic for him and his family and for the entire country, and worrying that he was murdered, assassinated. But I think he approached politics as like an attempt to humiliate rather than to persuade. And, I think it's okay to not forget that. I mean, it did inflame more than it, was some kind of civic exercise.
He was not an honest broker in the marketplace of ideas. I mean, it was all show. Right, the whole prove me wrong thing, he just wanted to debate with people. And I'd like to know from people who have more of a stomach for this than I do. Did he ever say, you know what? I think I'm wrong on this one. Because I don't think he ever did that. So, it was just a more evolved form of trolling.
Talk about protecting children. All the initial videos, when I turned on my TV and went on YouTube, they showed the actual shot, the blood squirting all over the place. And they said, there was no blade out or nothing. We're just gushing. I remember, in fact, one podcast had actually a sniper explaining how the bullet hit here and here's the blood squirting out and his head going back. Where was the protection? Supposedly to me, we're supposed to be worried about kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go.
I mean, as I've probably mentioned on the show before, I've gone hunting with my late father, and to hit somebody or to hit an object at that distance requires quite a bit of training. That seemed to be really a sniper shot at 200 yards. To have a direct shot at a carotid artery because it looked like how much the blood was immediately spurting. That took both some knowledge of anatomy and it took some training to be able to do that. Absolutely.
Because my friend was a sniper, and he says at 200 yards with the new guns and then what he had, that with about a month's worth of practice, it's impossible for anybody to do that. Okay, and he says it's not hard with the new guns, but he says to be informed about that side of the neck. Another my friend who was in Vietnam, he says, well, we shot the neck. That's because we didn't want their coffin to be open.
Maybe they. Oh. I was just going to say, I think a few thousand Michigan deer hunters would probably disagree with you on that. I mean, it was a 30-06 and a bolt action rifle, and from what I've heard, this is not a ninja level bit of marksmanship. But
yes, but Nancy, how many of those Michigan hunters were inebriated? I mean, I think you have to. So, Alan.
Somebody mentioned Mossad, and Trump or Netanyahu was asked about it. I mean, this guy Charlie Kirk was a major promoter of Israel. He was not. I mean, and it's so ridiculous. So,
but I mean that is completely absurd. But I mean, you could see the logic that assassinating a Trump ally would help Trump do all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots of conspiracy theories. They were actually saying that he was talking more about Epstein and
Yeah. I mean, there's probably a logic to it. I think it's completely absurd, but it's not like
But this is
mutually exclusive, I guess.
But this is the new logic of the conspiracy theory culture in which we live. That everything now has been put up for a debate. And I'm pretty sure that watching the news conference today with Kash Patel and the governor of Utah and everybody else, that the percentage of Americans who believe this version is probably less than the president's approval rating right now. That it seems as though, and ironically, a day after 9/11, when there was consensus in this country, that we are quite a ways away from that now. So,
I wonder if Kash Patel had not fired so many top-level FBI people, whether they would have caught this guy much quicker. I mean, these guys are clueless at the top. I mean, Dan Bongino, he was a Secret Service agent. Usually the number two person is always an experienced FBI agent who's worked his way through the ranks, who's really been, around the block. They got Dan Bongino, who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. They had to bring in a second deputy. And so you wonder, they fired so many top level people because, I mean, ironically, January 6th, they let all the criminals go, including the people who attacked the cops. And at the same time, they fired in the Justice Department, they fired federal prosecutors, and they fired FBI agents who were involved in prosecuting those cases, which is left with bullshit. And I talked to somebody from the FBI about a week ago, and they were like, people are just keeping their heads down low. It's really a stressful environment, and people don't do well when they operate under this kind of stress, and they don't treat each other well. And so
does this disprove Kash Patel's theory that real intel can be found at nightclubs?
But you understand, Alan, the one thing, they always find a job if they want to go work for ICE.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, Ed, the Supreme Court just held that the Trump administration is permitted to resume its indiscriminate immigration raids in Los Angeles, and now ostensibly that's going to be expanded, both with or without National Guard deployments. It looks like the president is going to be now targeting Memphis, Tennessee as well. Is this just simply now going to be the case of rubber stamping that even these kinds of raids that essentially are racial profiling and also are bringing into the dragnet U.S. citizens, that this is simply...
Well, the Supreme Court right now, according to the sub-judges, that they're agreeing with Trump like 70% of the time or something, high number. And number two, they're replaying, was it the 72 case, the 1970 or 74 case? That's what they're using. That's what Justice Kavanaugh said, that he was following the 1972 or 4 case, that's what they were allowed to do. So bottom line is the court is not stopping anything against Trump along these lines, giving up a power. I think we'll see what's going to happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from his chambers, his office, Attorney Steve Fishman.
But that decision isn't final, right? That's still sort of
right.
It
is, but that's the case they're using.
But the problem is that it seems the Supreme Court is going out of its way to limit liberties, civil liberties.
Right. Right.
Racially profiled policing is supposed to be against the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. Apparently, that clause doesn't really mean much in this context. And
while it's paused, there's going to be people are just picked up and detained. Yeah,
it is insane. And so, what we're seeing, and this is what we've always seen, is that the lower courts are saying this is bullshit, you can't do it. The appellate courts typically the same, this is bullshit, you can't do it. The Supreme Court with Chief Roberts is saying, well, that's okay. You have minorities, Sotomayor wrote just a blistering dissent. This is the opposite of what, and also I was taught that, hey, if Congress expands rights, the Supreme Court loves that. That's not the case anymore. Now that we're restricting rights, the Supreme Court seems to endorse that. And that's going to continue. And there'll be a slippery slope, and it will slide down to all sorts of cases. And it's going to allow Fourth Amendment violations, or what used to be Fourth Amendment violations and 14th Amendment violations are going to be commonplace, because now they're, of course, de rigueur. So,
and here's why it's hurting the states. Donald Trump has got it set up. At the last time I checked, nobody's going to be on duty for only 29 days. If they go 30 days, he's got to pay these guys. So he's doing it 1 day short of what they're entitled to get their pay.
Tay's the best. Yeah.
Well, isn't that what he did with was it McCabe, the FBI guy? He fired him before he could get his retirement benefits. Yeah. Fish. So we're talking about SCOTUS allowing the Trump administration to resume its immigration raids, but we were also talking about Charlie Kirk. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to comment on either or both.
Well, I agree with what Joel, I got in at the end of it, what Joel was saying about the Supreme Court allowing that kind of stuff. There's not much more to say than what he said. It's absolutely true, which is very easy for those guys to do. And I think Justice Sotomayor was kind of relating to that by saying that, you really? Well, I'm a Latina lady, and I know what it's like. And, black justices, I know what it's like. It's easy for Roberts and these white guys. They've been able to do this their entire life. They're white guys, and they get away with stuff. With respect to the Kirk thing, I don't know what you guys were talking about before, but I find it a little bit odd that lowering the flags to half staff for a 31-year-old guy who's expressed a few things about other people that are less than worthy of respect. Let's put it that way.
It's a useful. I was driving down Mack Avenue and I saw a few businesses that had their flags down. I was like, this is useful to me because these are places that I will no longer
Yeah, but Nancy, didn't you catch them like halfway, like with their hands still on the rope? Cut them some slack.
That was to hang somebody.
Yeah. And of course, our charmingly ignorant president, in his Truth Social post about this, called it half-mast, which is half-staff. It's. I mean, I don't want to be a pedant about this, but Jesus, it's like, can't anybody proofread this shit before you hit send? I guess not.
Now, Nancy, this is why we get in trouble on the show for people thinking that you're just too one-sided. At least he didn't say half-masked.
That would have been the best.
Yeah. I'm just saying, glass half fuller. But so Ed, I wanted to ask you. I mean, another Michigan case where a judge has dismissed the charges against the 15 Republicans who were accused in the 2020 false electors case. How do you see that playing out? What's the fallout? And I see, Darci, you're also nodding your head about this one too. So I'd like to hear from you.
Well, the problem is that I have some insider information. There was a little bit about weak evidence that wasn't presented or dealt with. Okay, not that I'm supporting what happened, but my friends and says that Nessel did a full investigation with Whitmer to present the full case, and so this is a little bit weak, and that's why it got busted that way.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what the judge spoke to, that they didn't prove their case essentially to say who told them to do this. They steered it toward the Trump administration. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But
well, neither why. I'm just hearing that was the primary thing.
No, that's pretty much what the judge said, and the coverage has reflected. So,
in that write-up, I think it was in the Detroit News, like the Post thing write-up, like it kind of sounded like they're saying like weak evidence for these electors because it's hard to prove that they knew what they were doing or not. But it was also like almost the wrong defendant. Like they should have been going after this Trump campaign lawyer who was like orchestrating everything.
Who's still active, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it seems like even regardless of this decision, like it seems like a huge like arrow towards something that is pretty like a very unresolved crime.
Steve, you were making gestures. Are you calling for a change-up, or did you want to say something?
Let me tell it to you from the criminal defense lawyer perspective. Okay, number one, this was a judge appointed by Whitmer, so we're not talking about some radical right-wing judge that did it. That's number one. Number two, some of the defendants, a decent number of them were in their 80s, which is a little bit interesting in bringing criminal charges on something like this against people in their 80s. And number three, you guys, I don't know if you've mentioned this before, the standard of proof at a preliminary exam is really, really low. All you have to show is probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause that the people did it. And I am friends with one of the lawyers who represented one of the defendants who happened to be in the 80s. It's hard for me to believe that this judge just went out on a limb for some reason other than the obvious reason. They presented their case, whether Ed's correct or they didn't put in everything or whatever, or maybe they had no case. They presented their case and they could not show a democratically appointed judge when you're charging people who were screwing around with the Republicans, right? If you couldn't persuade that judge that there's at least probable cause to believe a crime was committed, I think we should all just accept that as the correct ruling. We'll see if they appeal it to the circuit court. Maybe it'll get reversed. But for right now, I didn't think anything of it other than they don't have a case.
Well, Steve, my friendly Democratic attorneys like you basically said, "Yep." That, they didn't really react negatively. That's what they assumed was going on, what you just said.
But doesn't it point to? I mean, I don't think the decision was made wrong. I don't think the defendants, there was a case against them. But doesn't all of what transpired point to a crime like with that campaign attorney?
I don't honestly, Danny, I don't know, because I never looked at it from that angle until you just said what you said. All I looked at was what these people were charged with, and I looked at them, and I'm sure the judge did as well. And there just wasn't evidence against them. I think she was quoted in the paper, that same article you're talking about, either she or somebody from their office. Oh, the judge was basically full of shit and we're going to get it reversed and this and that and the other. We'll find out, because they do have the right to appeal. They'll appeal it to a circuit judge and we'll see what the circuit judge says. But for right now, I don't see any reason for any of us to assume anything other than that they didn't have enough evidence. That's all there is to it.
And see, this is the beauty of the show. We have a journalist, the Fourth Estate, that does its job in providing oversight and inquiry of other sources of power, including lawyers and former U of M basketball players. So, Allan, I think we can take a break.
In 1937, Detroit was in turmoil. Auto workers were on strike, and union strength was growing. A local minister and part-time labor broadcaster was found fatally injured at the Ford Rouge assembly plant. These dramatic events come to life in the play Forgotten, the murder at the Ford Rouge plant.
The boss has got to sign when you organize.
Actors, singers, and musicians tell the true story of how Detroiters built a union town while searching for clues to solve a mysterious death.
A strength of 100,000.
See Forgotten at Marygrove Theater, October 10th through the 12th. Tickets are $35 at Eventbrite or at MichiganLaborHistorySociety.com.
There you go. Now, Allan, I know you've been covering the Hamtramck City Council for some time, to the point where I think you're going to be speaking Bengali or Arabic very soon.
Salam alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Wow. And by the way, Steve, that wasn't Yiddish. So, this week, a judge has ruled that the Hamtramck City Council's removal of the trans flag from public display was not unconstitutional. Allan, have you been following anything with that?
I have, and I did exchange some text with the mayor, who was quoted him. He was applauding the thing that the judge ruled that one of the claims was that it was based on religious, that it was exclusivity, and the judge said, they crafted that resolution in a way to avoid some of that stuff. They said you could still fly the American flag, the POW flag, the state and city flag, but that was it. We don't want any other flags. Hamtramck has, I can't remember, it's been 18 or 19 flagpoles where people used to be able to, any country, people could buy a flag for $300 or whatever, and it could be Ukraine or Bulgaria or the African nation or whatever, and the gay pride flag. And then suddenly, when the council became majority Muslim, they said no. And when I did the story for the Washington Post on the ban, the mayor explained that homosexuality is a violation of Islamic law, and so I think the lawsuit tried to say that this was based on religious discrimination and all this stuff, and the judge didn't buy it. So it was Judge Lawson.
Just reminds what's happening in England right now with the Islamic separate court. There's going to be rules specifically for the Islamic community because of the religion. Okay, because I see a lot of that. Well, you probably get more in London than I do, but the point being the fact it seems like what happened years ago in England and London.
But in England, though, the Sharia courts are recognized as our rabbinical courts on matters of family law, just like how in New York State, the state recognizes a get, which is obtained through rabbinical courts. It's then given full faith and credit. So actually, though, the parallel in England, Ed, is the taking down of the flag of St. George, which is the England flag, which has sort of been appropriated by right-wing and ultra-right-wing groups. And the irony is that they're taking down the St. George flag, and people are claiming that this is being done by pro-Palestinian activists. But the flag of St. George actually spent quite a bit of time in Palestine. So there's this huge debate that's going on there. But the more important news out of England is that Prince Harry is back, and he is meeting with his father, the king.
Yay!
So,
he's a superhuman. He's got a superhuman wristband.
There
Did he bring his wife with him?
No.
Really?
No. Megan stayed at home, and
what
that's
is
another
he?
touchy issue.
What is he officially back? What's the reason for his visit? Just catch up with dad and brother?
Apparently, no, not the brother. No,
it was an honor of his mother. It was an honor of his mother. Both he and his brother were at attend some kind of ceremony for his mother.
Their grandmother Ed.
Grandmother, yes.
To visit. I think it's the anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's death. But he met with King Charles. King Charles actually flew back down to England to meet with him, and then Harry went on to Kyiv to meet with injured soldiers over there. But speaking of Russia and Ukraine, Poland shot down some Russian drones over its airspace. That seems to be, if those drones were headed for Ukraine, then Russian GPS really is way off because they really didn't need to go via Poland. So the question is this going to be a further escalation of conflict, particularly when our esteemed president was saying he's going to end this war?
Well, my first reaction to the fact that right now Putin is hurting for radars and protection. If they can convince to move the material that they're giving to Ukraine back to Poland to protect their land, then Putin will have less material that he has to worry about defending or protecting from that being shipped to Ukraine.
Okay. Thoughts? Anyone else about Poland? No one else cares about Poland?
I think this will come and pass as like a news cycle. I don't think it's going to lead to an escalation, but I think this will happen. Something like that will happen again.
Over and over again, yes.
The longer the war is protracted, the more opportunities for something like that to happen, the more chances for something terrible to go down. So something misinterpreted.
Do you think, Danny, that Putin was testing the waters to see what's NATO's resolve? I mean, after all, he flew these drones without firing on Poland, but just to see what was going to be not just the response militarily, but also in rhetoric.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have no idea, but I've seen commentary that this is him sort of poking, sort of testing to see how far he can go, what will or won't provoke a reaction, if it'll sort of trigger a NATO response or just smaller responses.
And in his case, he wants a response because with shifts machinery going to Poland versus to Ukraine, that's to his benefit.
Well, things would get really interesting if Poland were to invoke Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which says that an attack on one country is an attack on all. And if the White House says, well, maybe not this time.
Right. Yeah.
I think Trump already said that.
Oh, okay. But with his economy of words, then that's really impressive. Well, there was another attack this week, and that was Israel launched an attack on Qatar by targeting what it said was Hamas leadership in the capital city of Doha. They said it was a surgical strike, and they claimed that they took out Hamas leadership. There's a question about whether the leadership was, in fact, the high-ranking leadership or simply the negotiators in a deal for a ceasefire that had been sent to Hamas, in fact, one that President Trump had commented on just the day before. This seems to be also an escalation of attacking not only a country with whom Israel is not at war, but one that is actually a strategic ally to the United States by being home to the U.S. Central Command and also the servicing center for the U.S. Fifth Fleet in the Persian Gulf.
Fishman.
Just when you think that Bibi can't do anything crazier than what he's done over the last almost 2 years, something like this happens. If somebody would have told any of us 6 months ago that there's a possibility that the Israelis would send that kind of a strike into a country they're not at war with, a neutral country, whether you like their politics, you like the way they are, or not. And keep in mind, he sat there for 3 years before October of 2023, letting the Qataris send money to Hamas. I mean, he never said.
Letting.
I'm sorry?
Letting.
Yes.
Facilitating.
Actually, publicly intelliging them, go ahead and send the money.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a guy who obviously thinks that maybe he thinks he's the Lord. I don't know. But when I read it, I was absolutely astounded. And it's consistent with everything else he's done. And all it's doing is alienating everybody else in the world more and more and more until Israel becomes a pariah state. And people like my sister, who've been there 50 years, start looking for places to move and coming back here. So
yeah, I'd say it's reached pariah status. I think
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the opening of the UN General Assembly in a few days, with countries saying that they would recognize a Palestinian state. It doesn't bear reminding, though, that there's 169 countries that recognize Israel, and so far 145 that recognize Palestine. So it wouldn't necessarily be something new. Yeah, Steve.
Well, just one other thing. Of all the stuff that Trump does, all it would take is for him to say, "Look, goddammit, we're not giving you anything more. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're done."
Yep.
You know, he talks out of both sides of his mouth, which is what he's done his entire life. But on this stuff, this is insane. All he has to tell us is, "Look, that's it. We're done."
Any U.S. president could restrain Israel.
But does every U.S. president have Epstein photos, Danny? That's the real question.
Yeah.
In 8x10 glossies, Alan.
I agree with these guys in terms of, I mean, Trump could just like that. You know, Netanyahu is a manipulator, bully. The thing that bothers me, I mean, Netanyahu and Hamas, it's almost a symbiotic relationship. They both need each other to stay in power. Exactly. And so they don't want to end the war. You know, Netanyahu doesn't want to end the war, and Hamas stays in power as long as the war is still going. The thing that bothers me, and right or wrong, the attack, is that the people who are making the decisions for Hamas are living in a life of luxury while the Gaza is just being decimated, and it's going on and on. And I don't like the idea that they can strategically say, well, let's wait a little bit, and maybe there's no sense of urgency on their part. But it's not to excuse any of it, because Netanyahu, I mean, they're both two untrustworthy sides who are using each other to stay in power. That's
all right. Well, some news closer to home, or back to home. It looks like the job growth that led to the president firing the director of the Bureau of Labor Statistics seems to be even in worse shape. The job growth numbers were revised down by nearly 1 million, 940,000 and change. And it seems to signal that we're on the threshold of some very shaky economic times moving ahead. Now, he hasn't come out and said anything against the current BLS director, but clearly the manipulation of numbers is not working in his favor. Are we heading for a recession?
Well, the interesting thing on that is that according to the briefings that I was hearing, the fact that this was supposed to started of June of last year, okay? So the question is, who are you going to blame, Biden or himself? Which economies are you going to take the hit on? And the question is, did it speed up under his thing? But supposedly everything that I've read, even Biden economists said it started last June after looking at the numbers. And this is going to be retested again between now and the end of the year. Matter of fact, we're going to retest it again back next June. So there's relocation of who's to blame.
But well, the idea he blamed Biden though. This is all Biden's fault. So.
He blamed Biden for Cain killing Abel. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
You know, Steve, you're actually not that far off. So this was actually something that the Department of State tweeted last week. Quote, "Our nation was founded on the recognition that moral virtue and a steadfast faith in God are necessary preconditions of freedom. Yet under the Biden administration, U.S. foreign policy belittled Christianity and weaponized government against faith. That era has ended. Under POTUS's leadership, the State Department will eradicate practices that devalue and demean the Christian faith, such as rampant adultery by this president and sex offenses as well."
I mean, I think the what we are going to see in Michigan in particular are some tough times once again, because the tariffs in terms of the auto industry, the gutting of the dollars for a number of the programs that help people with lesser means. Our prices are not getting lower; they're getting higher, and so I mean, there's a whole list of things that will severely impact Michigan. And you know, he can throw the past president out there only so much and for so long before people say you are hurting our bottom line, hurting my pocketbook, hurting my ability to thrive and survive.
You know, Darci, we saw that with the Michigan Unemployment Insurance Agency now ordering the return of COVID unemployment benefits as overpayments from 350,000 people, and the numbers are pretty staggering. I mean, we're talking about $2.7 billion.
Wow.
How successful do you think that's going to be as far as collecting that back?
But the attorneys jump in, but I mean, that's going to be tough. I actually have a friend who works there and who kind of tried to call this out very early on. I think he was actually even quoted in some of the coverage of it. So he tried to give people a heads up that they needed better accountability measures at the front end, and he was ignored. And so here we are. But yeah, it's very difficult to go get money back, especially years and years later. Again, when you're still talking about people who are struggling to survive. So I don't know how they're going to have any modicum of success with that.
I had an editor.
Darci, I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I had an editor who was a reporter before she became an editor, and she would tell this story about the day she was sued for libel. It was a bullshit suit, but it was sued for $5 million, and the reporter who was writing that story asked her for a comment, and she said, "I don't have $5 million." So, I think that's sort of the answer here. It's like, we're going to claw back this money. It's like, sorry, it's gone. I spent it, so I don't know.
The problem with this, the fact is Trump's already indicated, even if you're 80 years old, if you owe money, you may take half of your Social Security check.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So,
have you lost me?
No. I was going to say, I've got this one great video, and it's about, we've seen in the last few days, Trump went to the restaurant, and actually we saw him being harassed.
I'm a museum too.
Yeah, we saw him being harassed in the restaurant, but what we didn't see were there were other videos where people were just congratulating him and shaking his hand, and he's standing outside of the sidewalk, surrounded by Secret Service saying, "Hey, I can finally stand outside."
Like a putt.
It's the first restaurant he's gone to in D.C. that wasn't his restaurant, back in the day.
But didn't they close the airspace over most of southern Maryland and northern Virginia for him to do that?
Yeah. And so we have a great, the National Guard. He's bragging about all the National Guard. So Jimmy Kimmel did a great little take on this.
I wonder, it really makes me wonder, years from now, when historians look back on this, how this will be remembered.
The evening before the extension of their deployment, a young National Guardsman by the name of Charles Alvarez wrote home to his wife in Rancho Cucamonga.
September 4th, 2025. My dearest Martha, I write to you from my company's garrison, located between the Burger King restaurant and Dollar Tree store. At dawn, we have orders to advance upon Panda Express, and I am fighting. I have nothing but misgivings for the cause in which I am engaged. Why are we here? Oh, Martha, I miss you so. Our position is perilous and our mission is fraught. This morning, my bunkmate Samuel was nearly wounded by an oven-roasted turkey and ham foot-long sub. If I do not return, know how much I will miss you and my co-workers back at the AutoZone.
Does anybody younger than 40 Danny, do you understand the cultural reference in that?
Like the Ken Burns?
Yeah. Well, you're smarter than the average.
See, Nancy, I was gonna ask him if he recognized cursive writing, because that's also
I think I'm just on the threshold. I think I'm just on the age threshold.
Dan, you're like me. It reminds me of like when I was on the threshold between the typewriter and the Commodore 64. That was, that paradigm shift. Alan, let's go to the last segment then.
All right.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Okay, I think it's fair to say that there's a plethora of them. Steve.
Mine is Stephen Miller, and he's pretty much the schmuck of a lifetime, actually. But his comments in response to the murder of Charlie Kirk and the things he said about really what I would consider to be regular people, but he considers to be people who ought to be extinguished. It's hard to believe. I know Joel feels the same way and Alan the same way. I cannot believe that guy has two Jewish parents. It's hard for me to believe that. I know his family can't stand him and all, but of all of his crazy stuff, I thought the comments he made this week, he leaped into the forefront of Schmuck of the Week, and that's my guy.
What did he say?
I couldn't. What did he say? He unleashed a whole torrent of just talking about how it's the left wing that murdered this man, and we're all going to murder all of them. He didn't say murder them all, but we're going to get even. You know, it's the kind of rhetoric you're used to hearing it from Trump, but this guy thinks he can pop off like that. And you know, he's the counselor to the president. Is that what his job is? Advisor to the president or something?
Yeah, he's
senior domestic policy advisor. Yeah.
Yeah,
he can't keep his wife. He can't keep his wife because she's likes Elon Musk more.
Yeah. Cuckolded by Elon Musk. That'll take the wind out of his sails.
So Steve, being raised by Frank and Estelle Costanza wouldn't draw you to these kinds of statements?
Unfortunately, I don't know who Frank is. That some kind of from TV show?
You never make a pop culture.
Georgie!
Now, Alan, mark the time. That's a Shonda.
Who are they?
Why would you expect the guy who hasn't seen a movie in a theater since Purple Rain or any movie for that matter to know who George and
Nancy, to be fair, I was quoting a pop culture reference that's on regular network television. All he needs,
popular show at the time.
He only watches sports.
All Steve needs is a television, even black and white, and a pair of rabbit ears.
That's right. And a ball game. As long as it's a ball game, I'll watch.
Oh my goodness.
I would say Stephen Miller back in World War II would have been a capo, and somebody who helped.
And a really good one.
Absolutely.
I asked my uncle once, Uncle Eugene, who was in Auschwitz. I said, "How did they know who to pick?" He said, "They just knew who would do it, who was willing to be a capo."
Who the Quislings were. Yeah.
Now, just for the audience, I just want to make the distinction between capo as people in the Jewish community who were helping the Nazis, as opposed to capo regime who are in the mafia, because I don't want them coming after me either for the inaccuracy.
Clemenza and Tessio, they were capo regimes, but yeah, that's right.
And Tessio was always smarter. Remember?
It's just business.
Okay. Yeah. It's just business. Darcy.
I know it's probably cheating, but I have to go with the chief confabulator, just because of his comments after the Kirk shooting. I think it stops with him, and to just be so hypocritical and talk about the left when that's their playbook, though. They pretty much take what they're doing and accuse the other side of doing it. So that's my Schmuck of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Danny.
Yeah, I guess one story we didn't talk about was that Venezuelan boat shooting.
I
think it was this week that J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, in response to someone suggesting that was not legal in international law, said, "I don't give a shit." So that's the Vice President of the United States saying, "I don't give a shit if I've assassinated somebody illegally abroad that we're not at war with."
And heir apparent to the throne, apparently, Danny, from his own musings about Trump's health. Ed.
I just can't believe how we're talking about Donald Trump. He's an FBI informant. Okay, without him, Epstein wouldn't have got busted. Come on.
That's the mic drop right there. By the way, I've been informed that Alan will not be firing anyone for being critical of Charlie Kirk on this show. Okay. So Nancy, you live for another week.
Okay.
There you go. Nancy.
I got to go with Kash Patel. If this, I think anybody who knows anything about law enforcement knows that most cases are cracked by informants, not by fancy CSI, some guy running around with a gas gas chromatography or whatever, where they say, "Ooh, somebody wearing a woman wearing Shalimar passed through this room 7 hours ago." So that was probably the person who killed him. This case seems to have been cracked by an informant. Lucky for Kash Patel, because all day yesterday it was one misstep after another. And who could have ever thought that putting a podcaster in charge of the nation's highest law enforcement branch would not turn out well? But that's what they did, and so they had people saying, "Oh, there was trans graffiti scrawled on the rounds, and there was and we think we got somebody." Oh no, we don't have anybody. So I mean, it was just a circus of a comedy of errors, as my friend's grandmother used to say. But
Nancy, you should have read deeper into Patel's LinkedIn page. Nightclub Maven is up there too.
When they said that he was coming to personally oversee the investigation, flying out from Washington, I imagined him on the plane just like rehearsing Tommy Lee Jones's outhouse, henhouse speech for the fugitive. You know, you could just hear him going like, "I want a hard target search of every."
Well, he might have stopped. He might have stopped at whorehouse, but
yeah.
You know, okay. Joel.
Okay, I am going to go with back to the Schmucks are all people who rushed to judgment and were just praying that this would be somebody on the far left who was trans, of color, God only knows what. You're all schmucks, and what's problematic with this is that there seems to be momentum towards depriving people due process. A couple hours ago, President Trump just said that he would like to have trials in one day like they do in China. Well, we're not China. We got a constitutional republic. We got a 14th Amendment due process clause that is really, really important for all of us. And this zeal for immediacy, retribution, revenge toward whatever perceived enemy at the cost of the Constitution is completely nihilistic and insane. And it's just picking up steam. So those are my schmucks. There's more to come. So,
Joel and Steve, I'd be curious to hear what you have to think. That the president also says that he hopes that he gets the death penalty, and I think Utah does have the death penalty. Is that enough to prejudice jury pools that the suspect could be able to leverage it effectively?
Steve, what do you I don't know.
I can't believe in a state like Utah you can't find some hermit who's been living in a cave for with his 25 wives.
I'd say no.
Yeah, I'd say no as well. I don't think it's be enough prejudice to cause anything. That, cause a dismissal.
But it would be a fair question on voir dire to go ahead and ask if they heard the president say that.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. They agree with her.
Okay. Darci, you get a mulligan. Go ahead.
All right. I was just sharing that with you all, but that's fine. So I just want to change mine to the Treasury Secretary. I don't know if you guys saw that, where he threatened to whip Bo Pelti's ass, like cursed him out because he thought he was dissing him to the president. That's beyond belief.
Yeah.
That is a true schmuck of the week.
So is Secretary Bessent your schmuck because he threatened him or because he didn't follow through on it?
I mean,
both.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Fair enough. Okay.
Fair enough.
All right. Alan.
I'm going to a couple things. One, I'm going to say the media like MSNBC. I mean, it's ironic that Charlie Kirk has gotten such a wide berth now as being accepted for what he says and stuff like that. Yet the media like MSNBC is firing somebody for expressing their opinion in a way. And then I think there was a sports writer in Arizona who also tweeted something. And it wasn't like, I mean, it was an intelligent expression of something. And now they're being canceled out but Charlie Kirk can say whatever he wants. And that's, he's the hero. And these people who express their opinion are now being canceled out for that. I think it's ironic. And the other person is back, Kash Patel, but for a different reason. There's some fired FBI agents who have fired lawsuits for their firings. And one of the things they were saying was that they were high-level people. They were asked, did you vote for Trump? And how long are you loyal to him and all that kind of crap, which we've never, ever seen before. And they've been fired. I mean, Kash Patel has made a farce out of the FBI. And, William Barr said when he was going to be appointed the first term under Trump as a deputy FBI director, William Barr, who kind of a suck up to Trump, said, over my dead body, is he going to get that job? But
well, he got it now. So.
Yeah, and he's not dead.
William Barr, whose dad was president of Dalton and hired
Jeffrey Epstein.
There you go.
I think in these dark times we should start thinking about maybe a dementia of the week. just to brighten up spirits a little bit.
You know what? That's yeah, you're right. I think you're right.
Well,
Yeah.
and also
It's also
next week we can celebrate history. We're going to have cars on Mackinac Island.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. The cabinet, some cabinet members of the Trump is coming on the island for the Republican convention. They're allowed to bring cars.
Oh man, that's right. They did that for Mike Pence. So yeah. So much for
All right.
tradition.
Well, since we don't have a troika of lawyers, I think I should have a troika of schmucks. First of all, Philly's Karen. I mean, that ball wasn't even near her, but the sense of self-entitlement to go bully a father to get the ball back when he'd given it to his kid. And by the way, Danny, I think the mensch of the week is the dad, because he handled things with such grace. And I'm glad to see that the kid got not only a signed bat from the guy who hit the ball, a lot of Marlins swag from the Marlins team, because that was the home team. They stepped up. But there's a CEO of an RV company that has offered to send the kid and the family to the World Series and throw in an RV as well.
Wow. Wow.
That was wonderful.
All of
Somebody
that for having
mistreat
to
me.
deal-
I could use some swag.
Yeah.
You know what?
I'd love to drive an RV. God knows what I do, but I'd love to drive an RV.
Nancy, some people get swatted. You might get Karen'd, and you might profit from it. So there you go. A couple of others actually dealing with speech. One is the United States Tennis Association for telling its broadcasters, ABC and ESPN, to refrain from coverage of President Trump, who was at the final, from the booing that he inevitably and in fact did get. Thank you for citizen journalism for covering it and putting it on blast on social media. But the buffoon shows up, and they had to delay the start of the game or the match. And there were still hundreds of fans that were outside trying to get in because of the security cordon, who most of them missed the entire first set between Yannick Sinner and the champion, the eventual champion, Carlos Alcaraz. And notwithstanding the fact that he slept through a good amount of the match as well, but really the USTA for that kind of prior restraint. And the other one is Congressman Clay Higgins, Republican from Louisiana, who has said the following, and I quote, "I'm going to use congressional authority and every influence with big tech platforms to mandate immediate ban for life of every poster commenter that belittled the assassination of Charlie Kirk. If they ran their mouth with their smart-ass hatred celebrating the heinous murder, sorry, I don't do Cajun, of that beautiful young man who dedicated his whole life to delivering respectful, conservative truth into the hearts of liberal enclave universities armed only with a Bible and a microphone and a Constitution," the irony of using invoking the Constitution here, "those profiles must come down. So I'm going to lean forward in this fight, demanding that big tech have zero tolerance for violent political hate content, the user to be banned from, all caps, all platforms forever." So,
okay, rational response.
It was to all my Facebook contacts. It was nice knowing you. So, see you later.
Well, the whole idea that this coming from a state that usually ranks within the bottom 5 of education and healthcare and a whole lot of other things that certainly I imagine his constituents would prefer he spend more time worrying about than people trolling Charlie Kirk on social media. So Clay Higgins, there you go. Thank you for going through a lot. I think, as Nancy has said in the past, a fire hose of stuff that has happened to make the week that it was. Thank you, Danny Fenster. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Ed Sarpolus. Thank you, Darci McConnell. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And thank you, and with the last word, always, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week. Have a great week.